Well, that was crap, wasn't it? Very poor afternoon all round, I would say. I think that the outcome was probably about right. I think that Fulham had the better of the chances in the first half, and I felt like they obviously took their third goal really well from a counter-attacking perspective. And obviously with the first one, I mean, I think it's awful defending from Sunderland. Yet again, it's another goal conceded from a set piece, which we did against Liverpool. I think it's poor that we're let in 3 goals at home to Fulham given their away form, but no one's got a God-given right to win any game. So obviously you have to take that one on the chin. And Fulham aren't a bad team, they've got quick athleticism. They're very, they're quite bullish, and I mean that in a good way. They're quite hard to play against. So I think for Fulham, fair enough. I think the right outcome happened. I think they deserved all 3 points. I think there's quite a few things to say really. I think first and foremost, let's get this out of the way, because people probably know that I am going to mention Craig Pawson. Let's just say I think he was appalling. I think there was little to no consistency in his decision making. I actually, for Fulham's penalty, now I haven't seen it back properly, because I did see it in the stadium, but the angle, obviously the image is quite far away from us, so I didn't really take it in properly. So I want to have a look at it again. As of right now, I think the Fulham penalty was a penalty. I think other way around, I think we're appealing for that to no end. So I need to look at it back, but please anyone tell me respectfully if I've got that wrong, or whether I need to watch it again and I might realise it's not a penalty. But I felt like there was at least a couple of occasions where I thought Sunderland players were often wiped out. Particularly, there was one in the first half. It might have been Nilsson Angulu, right in front of Craig Pawson, and he didn't bother to give anything, which I thought was absolutely disgusting. I thought there were a couple of occasions where I thought we got probably a little bit lucky, where a free kick probably for Fulham should have been awarded, and somehow nothing was given. So I think people can't say I'm not consistent both ways. I think the referee was Pawson for both teams, but and for anyone who thinks I just mentioned the refs, I'll say it all the time. If they think I just mentioned refs when we get beat, then check out our 3-2 win against Bournemouth, where I really laid into the referee when we've won a game. So it's not bitterness when we get beat. But having said that, it was not Craig Pawson's fault we lost the game. So people need to listen to that bit. It is not Craig Pawson's fault we lost the game. Although I thought he was shocking, and I think that because we were poor, it doesn't mean that the referees can be absolved of criticism. But having said that, Craig Pawson doesn't make Romain Mundle miss the chance. He doesn't make us defend the first goal as poorly as we did. He doesn't make, obviously the third goal is a counter-attacking one. From Fulham's point of view, it's a very quick counter-attacking goal, and obviously he seals the game off. But I think obviously the big turning point of the second half, I would say, is the chance that Romain Mundle has, which is when he basically gets himself not kind of one-on-one from what I remember inside the ground, but it was a big opportunity, and obviously score that, the game's totally different, isn't it? And then minutes later at the other end, Fulham end up going and taking the lead. And there is something that is probably starting to be a bit of a concern here for me, and I think a lot of people would agree. We haven't scored a goal from open play, I think, since Talby's against Burnley. Now, am I concerned about the fact that it'll get us relegated or anything? No. I still think we will have enough to make sure that we get over that. I mean, effectively, at most, if 40 points isn't going to be enough, at most, I think you need probably about 8 points at most. And I think Sunderland across the season, well, they better have enough to get those. But I think that we probably will, especially with Xhaka coming back from the start. Hopefully that will be a big factor at Bournemouth, but we'll wait and see how that one goes, of course. As far as I think goal from open play, I think that's absolutely a valid concern. It's an absolutely valid thing to point out. The only thing I would say is that, and I've said this quite a few times, which is the wingers in particular, because obviously the wingers are often a prime topic of discussion here. So I think with the wingers, what's important to remember is that as a promoted club, obviously, yes, we had a lot of wiggle room when it came to PSR, but it wasn't a limitless one. And the wingers to the level that we would want, unfortunately, cost quite a lot of money. And when I say a lot of money, I'm primarily talking about probably 30-40 million at least here, maybe even 50 to 60. And I've said before, even if you look at Semenyo, and obviously I know a lot of our fans now don't expect to get someone like Semenyo, but what I mean is the only reason that he was only about 65 million was because of a release clause. If it weren't for that, Man City probably would have had to have paid a lot more than that for him. So I think it is important to remember that we have to stay up this season, and then I think next season or in the summer, I think we will go after attacking quality. I really do think that. I think that we will I think we will, in the summer, have another year or so of Prem money to play with. I think we will have more wiggle room. Obviously, SCR comes in, which basically means you can spend 85% of your turnover, up to 85% on the cost of your first team squad effectively, which includes head coaches, etc., and backroom staff for it. But I think that's something we do have to remember. And I don't want to pick on Mundle, by the way. I don't particularly want to make Mundle a scapegoat, because I try to avoid doing that with players. Don't always succeed, by the way, but I do try to do it. But I think it was clear to me that unless his development really goes upwards, and to be fair to the lad, he has had a lot of barren spells out with injury, but I do think, I personally don't think he'll be good enough for Premier League standard, and that might sound harsh, and I might very well be being harsh, but I think you've got to be at Premier League level. If you look at that chance that you had, you've got to score it, or at the very least get it on target. But yeah, I think then obviously Traore, I think, has been a massive miss. I think that we are definitely missing the trickery that he brings, the sort of, similar sort of athleticism to Mundo, but I think he executes it quite better. But another thing, as people probably know that I am going to go on about, I think that we are starting to concede too many goals. And I think, Arsenal and Liverpool, I can understand it, because obviously they're two of the best sides in the division. And while Fulham, don't get me wrong, Fulham are absolutely not a bad team. Not in any way, shape or form, they're not a bad side. But I don't think that they're so good that we should be letting 3 goals in against them at home. Obviously, one of them, of course, was a penalty, to be fair to the lads, and the third one was a counter-attacking goal. That happens. But I just think we're starting to go behind a bit too often in games for me. And I think probably, when was the last time we didn't go behind? Apart from Burnley, I think since New Year's Day, really, we've gone behind in nearly every Premier League game, apart from Man City and Burnley. That's something that needs to, stop. We need to stop. And don't get me wrong, I know it's easier said than done that. But obviously, look, I don't just mention clean sheets for the hell of mentioning clean sheets. I mention them because I want to win. I mention them because I want to, because I know how hard the Prem is, and when you're up against some really good quality opposition, I think you need to be good defensively. And I just think our defensive standards, as well as attacking, I suppose, but I think our defensive standards have slipped a bit, and I think it needs to be highlighted a little bit more. But look, am I worried about relegation? No, not particularly. I never once felt we'd actually make Europe, to be honest, even in the Premier League. I think top half is still more than achievable, and if we'd end up even getting a draw today, we would have gone into the top 10. But of course, we don't take the opportunity, do we? It's just Sunderland. It was just quite funny and typical, really, that we had a promo advertising for season ticket renewals for next season, which, by the way, I am going to renew. Of course I am. And then we end up going on to lose. That's just classic Sunderland. But look, I'm going to love you and leave you there, because as I said, as usual, I just waffle at this point. But I'm trying to get a 7K subs. So if you could hit that sub button, comment respectfully, share the video, like all the other stuff, it would mean an absolute world to us. Let's cheer us up a little bit because of obviously the result. And we'll see what happens at Bournemouth. And let's hope it's a much better result than what it was today. Take care, everyone. Love you a lot. And stay safe. How are the lads?